Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A very pleasant evening to all of you, and a very warm welcome to our event. Thank you to each one of you for becoming a part of this event and gracing it with your presence. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Shraddha Bajaj, Proven's Customer Success Manager, and I'll be your host for today's program. We at Proven grow and prosper each year due to our mutual passion for our vision and mission. It is this passion that allows us to achieve our individual as well as common goals, and it helps us all to unite. Our prestigious clients are a vital part of our success story, and we're proud to be able to host this event today at this wonderful place with all of you. As you must know, that Saudi Arabia is the largest economical markets in the GCC region, the government of Saudi has been taking various initiatives in localizing supply chain, and therefore international businesses are gradually gearing up to take on mega and giga projects in the months to come. So, from establishing your company to obtaining visas, keeping pace with the various policy developments, managing compliance, as well as developing a sustainable relationship with various government entities, we at Proven strive to provide high quality and tailor-made solution to our clients to enable their business to meet its operational and financial goals and ensure their commercial success in the kingdom. We believe in building a solid foundation for our clients as we're able to see the bigger picture of things and help connect the dots, especially when they have just set foot in the kingdom. In today's gathering, our expert speakers will shed light on some of the key factors to thrive and succeed in Saudi Arabia. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker panel to you. We will be joined by Maha Ali, Proven's legal manager, to share insights on how to successfully establish an entity in Saudi Arabia, alongside Adnan, Proven's legal associate, shedding light on the new announcement of the company law amendments, followed by Michael, business development manager, joining us virtually to share insights on the new program of regional headquarters. Mr. Usman Qureshi, Director of Customer Success, shall address the ever-changing landscape of Saudi Arabia and share his expertise on managing various government compliance, as well as wage protection system and KAWA regulations. And our final speaker would be Sumair Rashid, Proven's Head of Operations, to address the most important subject of our agenda and share his expertise on meeting Saudization requirements and the ever-changing Nasakat regulations in the region. So this is the agenda we will be covering today, and with that, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Ms. Maha Ali, to come on board. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharda, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today and sparing us your valuable time. It's been lovely meeting all of you, and we have to interact like moments before. And I'm pretty sure that you will enjoy our event today, as we will be answering all the essential questions that we always receive from our clients regarding starting or expanding the business in Saudi market. So I will start with the main question, which is, as a foreign investor, how to identify that you are eligible to start your business or expand your business to the Saudi region. Whether you are a group of companies already located outside Saudi Arabia, or an individual, or even a startup entity, you will find the right approach for you to start your business in Saudi Arabia. If you are a well-established company already located outside Saudi Arabia and you have your stable and suitable business line, you would be able to extend this business into Saudi Arabia if you have a valid CR for your parent entity with a bylaws. It might be a certificate of incorporation, certificate of incumbency, it might differ beside the region, and at least 1 year financial statement. With having these documents, you will be eligible to start your business in Saudi market. If you are an individual and you find that the Saudi market is promising and you want to start your business there, also you will find a solution, which is getting the green card, the Saudi green card. It's a premium residency, has been launched and announced in 2019 as part of 2030 vision, and it provides you a full package of incentives, including ownership rights for immovable and movable, use-of-fact rights, even in Mecca and Medina, unrestricted entry and exit visa, and of course, the right to conduct your commercial business in Saudi Arabia to be individually owned by you. If you are an individual or even a well-established company, but you do have an innovative idea, some solution, some new developments that will enhance and enrich the Saudi market, you will have the right approach in Saudi Arabia. A type of license called entrepreneur license, which you need only to get an innovative idea and a business sponsor. It might be a university, governmental entity, or even one of the biggest companies in Saudi Arabia. And there is a lot of resources to reach out to these business partners and get their support. Now, if we already confirmed that you're already eligible to start your business in Saudi Arabia, or even expand your own business into Saudi region, the next question will be, what is the legal form that you need to create your legal presence in Saudi Arabia under which? And this will be determined based on two factors: the type of business that you will be performing in Saudi Arabia, and the fact that to what extent you wish to get your parent company or your shareholder involved in the Saudi business. I will elaborate that. If you want an independent legal form, like a solely independent and separated from the parent entity, especially when it's come to the legal responsibilities and financial liability, you would go with an independent legal entity, which can be a limited liability company or a joint stock company. Getting back to a limited liability company, it can be owned by one person or more, and and it should be mentioned that the legal responsibility in this type of companies is limited to the shareholder contributions in the capital share, which means that the responsibility will never exceed that limit to threaten the financial personal liability of the parent entity or even the shareholder. You will be limited only to the amount that you already have invested in the limited liability company. It's also shall be mentioned that it's very flexible. There is no minimum requirement for the capital. There is no restriction over the activities, and the management structure will be decided definitely by you in the article of association. Whether one manager, two directors, board of managers, it's up to you. And then the second type of companies would be the joint stock company. And similar, it has also a limited liability for the parent entity and the shareholders. But until January 2023, this type of companies was allowed for 2 or more shareholders with minimum capital of 500,000 Saudi Riyal. 25% of it should be paid up before you complete your incorporation and get your CR. This has been changed a little bit after January 2023, and this will be already explained by my colleagues today. But I will get back to the normal situation for the joint stock company, which will be required for certain business field, like the financial sector, the banking sector, and in this case, the management would be by a board of directors consisting of at least 3 members. Okay, what if you already have your parent entity outside Saudi Arabia, fully operational, and what you need to do is only have an extension to that parent entity in the Saudi market. You're not having an independent entity, you're just having an extension to that entity. The option will be a branch of foreign company. Branch of foreign company will be subject to full control of the parent entity. All fundamental decision will be taken by the parent entity, and there is no article of association where the management will be determined. It will be managed by one general manager, handling the day-to-day operational. There is no minimum requirement. There is no restriction over the activities. However, it shall be noted that the legal responsibility, the legal liability, will be extended to the parent entity. The parent entity will remain responsible for all the activities performed by the branch. Okay, these two types, whether the independent legal entity or the branch of foreign entity, will be available in case you already know that you will start your business in Saudi Arabia. You tested the market. You already had the due diligence. You already made your mind that you will start that business there. But what if all these are not ready yet? You didn't test the market yet. You know it's promising, but you didn't test it. You don't have the market plan or market research. In this case, the scientific and technical office would be your option. The scientific and technical office is similar to the branch. It's an extension for your parent entity. It gives the parent entity the legal presence in the Saudi market. However, there is a fundamental difference that it is non-operational. It cannot conduct a commercial business by itself. It only exists to give the parent entity the legal existence or presence to do the market research, to build the business partnership, to build a solid client database. Does this mean that during this process, there is no activities would be performed? No, this is not correct. The activities would be conducted by the parent entity through an agent or a business partner, which is one of the requirements. You need to have an agent or a business partner in Saudi Arabia where the parent entity will be performing the activity through them while you already building the client database, you're conducting the market research as you need. Okay, now you have confirmed that you are eligible to start your business in Saudi Arabia. You have choose the legal form suitable for you, whether it's independent or just an extension for your parent entity. The next step would be deciding the ISIC activities that you will be performing. ISIC is a system for classifying the activities in the Saudi market. It classified and categorized these activities based on the business that will be performed, based on the type of MISA license that you need to obtain. And speaking about the MISA license has a lot and various type of license. It depends on the performed activities. I will present the most common of them, and I will start with two of the licenses that are well known to be the least restricted. They can be owned by a foreign national with 100% ownership. There is no requirement for a Saudi partnership. There is no requirement for a minimum capital. There is no restriction over the activities, which are the service license and industrial license. Service license will be required whenever your activity is providing services to your client, whether it is maintenance, marketing, or even any type of services that you want to provide to your client. The industrial will be required where your activities is material or product manufacturing. The other part of, or the other type of licenses is the commercial licenses. And this will be required when you are a trading company, when you are performing wholesale or retail sale outside Saudi Arabia and you wish to perform that in Saudi Arabia as well. I would say that this is more restricted license. It requires to have at least 3 legal presence outside Saudi Arabia in regional or international market. You have to get a 30 million Saudi riyal minimum capital for your KSA entity or your entity that will be incorporated in Saudi Arabia. It shall be mentioned that it can be 100% owned and it can be with a Saudi partner with at least 25%. I have to say that having a Saudi partner would release some of the restriction, especially regarding the annual compliance requirement, but the capital share would remain similar whether you have a Saudi partner or you're already 100% foreign shareholder. Another type of license would be the professional license. And this is This type of license is specified for specific business field where the one who should conduct this business should be authorized and accredited for providing this profession. It includes lawyers, translator, engineers, consultant, and this type of license cannot be 100% owned by a foreign company. It shall have a Saudi professional partner with at least 25%. Also, the professional shareholder should prove his authorization to perform this profession. He should provide whatever, prove his accreditation in his home country. Okay, the fourth type of license will be suitable solution and available solution if your business or your plan to enter Saudi Arabia is to start your business after the incorporation. You will incorporate the company, you will complete the secondary registration, and then you will start performing the business. What if your purpose to join the Saudi market is to apply for a tender? It's announced by public authority or even by private, and it has a deadline, and this deadline is tight that you cannot incorporate the company, complete the secondary registration before the deadline. There is also a solution for that. MISA has announced temporary contractor license. It's a temporary license, valid for only 1 year, non-renewable. It provides you the right to apply for these tenders until you get the letter of award. It will be suitable and sufficient to do the application, but it is not sufficient to implement the project or incorporate the company. Which means that after you obtain this type of license, you need to get the operational license, whatever related to the tender. You need to incorporate your company, complete the secondary registration, and then you can start your business in the Saudi market. I'll get back to the entrepreneur license. This type of license has a valid reason, which is the Saudi vision to support all the innovative investors, those who have a developed idea, those who seek to enrich the market, especially the new generation, that they want to start and implement their vision and their ideas. For those, MISA has announced entrepreneur license. And I'm glad to say that all the restriction has been released for that type of license. You only need to find your business sponsor and submit a recommendation letter from that sponsor. This was a long journey, but actually, I would describe it as only gathering puzzles. Now the real show began, which is incorporating the company, obtaining your secondary registration and all the license you need to, to start your business. For that, I will walk you through the process. What you need to do first in order to get your company incorporated, to get your additional approval received, and to get your secondary registration completed. First step would be as we did today, meeting an engaging expert to advise you on the ISAC activity, the additional approval, the type of license, the type of legal entity, as we just did, but specifically for your activities, for your business, for your plan to join the Saudi market. Next would be preparing your document, your legal document, parent entities document, shareholder document, preparing all the legal draft, board partner resolution, power of attorneys, forms and an application for MISA, for MCI, for any other portals. And this, in this step, it should be taken into consideration that all these documents, if issued outside Saudi Arabia, should be legalized, attested to be accepted by the governmental authorities. Okay, next step would be MISA. You need to apply all these documents along with the required application to MISA in order to obtain the needed investment license. This license would include all the fundamental information regarding your entity, the capital share, the reserve trade name, the location, your activities, all the information that you already decided with your expert. Moving to the next point would be drafting your bylaws. It can be an article of association or incorporation contract based on the type of the company. And this bylaws should be legalized, attested, notarized by MCI, and published in Amali magazine before you receive your CR. At this point, when you have your MISA license, your bylaws, and your CR, I can confirm to you that your legal presence in Saudi Arabia has been officially created. You can start work on building your business. Actually, you can start signing agreement with your clients. But there is other step, which is the secondary registration. Secondary registration is important to get you operational with the governmental authorities, to keep your records for the employees, for the Zatka and taxation, for all other portals that would require. This would start with the Chamber of Commerce. This would start with the Chamber of Commerce, then HRSD, your WASL, which is your address, official address in Saudi Arabia, Zatka, Gusi, Mudad, Qiwa, Muqim, and you will find a detailed elaboration for all these portals by my colleagues during the event. For most of companies, I would say that the incorporation would end here with completing the secondary registration. However, some of the clients or some of the companies will need another step, which is obtaining an additional approval. This is not applicable for all the activities. There is only type of activities. For example, if you're working in the entertainment field, you should get an approval and registration from General Entertainment Authority. If you're working for a solution and information technology, CITC would be the governmental authority that you need to apply with. So some of the cases would require an additional step, which is obtaining the additional approval. And by saying that, your own incorporation, post-registration, and additional approval would be ready, and you would be ready to start your business Saudi market. And by saying that, my part with you would come to end, and I would have to pass my mic to my colleague, Adnan Al-Hussein, our legal associate.
Thank you, Ma, actually, for providing this very informative information regarding the incorporation. And I guess, as all of you has been somehow aware or read about the new companies law that has been enforced just a month ago, just to give you a heads up, what's good about this law, what makes it better than the previous law. So the good thing about the just new enforced companies law that it creates kind of, let's say, a balance between flexibility for shareholders to choose or decide what to include in their entity, as well it provides as well strict rules that provide protections for investing, just to not fall in misuse of the company assets. Actually, the new law is quite big. It's very big to cover in just such a short time. So I have just briefed you with 6 points, which I think it's good to know, especially in the perspective of a new investor in Saudi Arabia to know. Starting from the new, from point number 1, which is the regulatory requirements. Actually, many of the regulation has been released to be decided by the shareholders comparing to the previous law. As from the last year and the previous years, most of the foreign investors, when they want to incorporate an LLC in Saudi Arabia, they always face a limitation in the Unified Article of Association template. You cannot amend you only have a limited way of deciding how the company should be run. You must hire an auditor. The company must have an ending date, and so on. And as well, you cannot choose the way how to distribute the profit. You must have a financial reserve, and so on. So these sometimes might be annoying, especially when a foreign entity want to align with the financial statement or want to create a consolidated financial statement that, or a business that not expanding yet in the region. So with the new law, actually, the shareholders or the business owner can still have the flexibility to decide what management structure to choose, and also can decide the voting scheme of the General Assembly, how to convene the General Assembly, the timelines, and what the agenda to include, that especially in the LLC or the simplified joint stock company, which I will cover before. As well, the time limitations, especially for the financial statement, the convenience of the General Assembly has been aligned to be 6 months ago. This is one of the issues where shareholders were they facing to decide of the where they have a short time to decide or approve the financial statement. For example, in the previous law, companies must prepare and upload the financial statement within 3 months post the ending year. At the same time, the company, the LLC company, will be binded by a 4 months limitation, maximum time, where they have to call for an annual general meeting to approve the and decide on the financial statement, which also give the investors, the management, as well as the shareholders, on a very short time to look through them and decide. However, with the new law, this has been aligned to be all by 6 months, along with the joint stock company. So at least the management and the shareholders can have enough time to look at the financial document and decide what's best for the company. And also for the second point, actually, which is it is quite important, especially if you're in the management level in Saudi Arabia. I mean, to run a business, to run a company in Saudi Arabia. So managers and directors have also a ethical liability and obligation when it's coming to running a company. For example, this decision making must be with a reasonable care. That's by law, and also conflict of interest must be disclosed at any level, whether it's direct or indirect. As well, there is also certain action must be avoided, such as abusing of power, using overpowering also. The other thing, which is also using the personal interest, using the company's resources for personal interest, is also forbidden by the new law. So along with other also obligation must be, the process, how to disclose conflict, how to comply with corporate governance. This also has been implemented and put as a regulatory requirements in the new law. So keep in mind, when you violating such regulation, you might face a personal liability and face a personal liability and might be subject to pay for damages. So as for the third point, which is actually the provision of company transformation and merger and acquisition, the law provide more comprehensive and detailed and clear guidelines how the merger and acquisition or the company transformation can be worked. That including the type of notices, the resolution, the rights and obligation of each party, as well in terms of how the other party have the right to object and how they can file the objection through the legal procedure. And also there is a new way which is called splitting an entity into two or more entities on different structure. For example, if you have an LLC company that is with branches in Jeddah and Riyadh, and you want to separate the the Riyadh branch and other than Jeddah, you can split the company, dividing the assets into two different companies. That's why you can have a different entity. That if you have a plan, for example, to limit such risk, and you want to, you don't want to run it under one entity. And moving also to the fourth point, which is hiring auditor or the external auditor. As you know, the previous from the previous law, all companies, all entities with no exception must hire at least one external auditor every fiscal year. Although this is true, this is actually, it's a good approach to apprise disclosure and protect financial interest. However, it comes at cost, especially for companies that doesn't generate much. Micro and small companies that might see this requirement costly for them. So the new law actually provide an exclusion, an exception for companies that categorized as micro or small company, where they don't have the obligation to hire an external auditor and just left by preparing financial statement and keeping the financial records of the company. However, this is not a complete exclusion. In fact, foreign companies, even if they considered as micro or small businesses, they still are still mandated to hire an external auditor. As well, companies that are listed in the capital market, or that companies are willing to initiate debt instrument or sukuk, as well, they still need to hire an external auditor. Moving to the fifth point, which is actually which is related to the profit distribution. Previously, LLC companies were not allowed to provide only bounded by an annual distribution. However, with the new law, joint stock companies and the simplified version, and also the LLC company can also decide whether the distribution can be on annually basis or interim basis. That means they can decide it's going to be quarterly or half year or annual year. This should be decided also by the shareholders during the annual general assembly. And moving to the last point, which is the alternative dispute. As from the previous law, this was not available to companies, as all dispute should be resolved through the courts. However, the new law gave the option that shareholders of companies can use alternative methods such as arbitration, mediation, instead of just going directly to the court. As you know previously, even if this clause was available, the shareholders can just go directly to the court, and the court will just abandon the arbitration clause, will not consider it, but not anymore with the new law. And also I want to highlight one more point regarding the new simplified joint stock company. Yes, this work. Okay. So also we have a new way of structure, which is called the simplified joint stock companies. And this is an ideal structure for startup businesses or businesses that look to get a finance through private equity, because this type of entity is less complicated than the traditional joint stock companies. For example, the simplified version can be established by one or more shareholders with infinite numbers. As well, there is no minimum capital requirement and no paid up capital percentage needed upon establishing the entity. This is not the case in the traditional joint stock companies, where the capital share must be at least $500,000 riyal, paid up with 25% in advance. So as well as the third option, which is for most of the time it is the ideal option for decision making, a quick decision making, where the shareholders need to rely on quick decision making, which is the business or the management structure. So the joint stock company, the traditional one, they must hire at least a board of directors consist of chairman and two directors. While the simplified version, actually, they have the choice to choose either just hire a general manager, or to choose the board of directors, or even just directly go to the CEO to be the head of the company. That's as I said, this is a good structure for startup companies, because what they need for most of the time is quick decision making, and as well also there is also other clauses which should be preferable for this type of structure. For example, simplified version, they still have the ability to issue all type of shares, whether common share, preferable shares, in cash or in asset paid. As well also, there is no general assembly procedure, strict general assembly procedure as in the traditional way, where you have to call for the general meeting 20 days in advance, and then you have to inform the Ministry of Commerce and provide the agenda and so on. In the simplified version, all this is not actually mandatory, but will be left to the shareholder to decide. As well, they can just keep with the voting bypass instead of just having the annual general meeting or physical general meeting. And for the last point, actually, the simplified version can have more control on the stock trading. For example, the simplified version can post restriction on stock trading for the first year, for example, as well to limit who can buy or sell these stocks to be, for example, from the internal circle to be passed by the internal circle before it can be passed to external buyer. So this is let's say the key features which makes the simplified joint stock companies better, or an ideal choice for certain project or certain startups comparing to the traditional joint stock company. To sum up what have been covered in the in the new company law is just the tip of the ice, because the new actually law cover a variety of topics, including the non-profit companies, professional companies as well. It also address the corporate governance, and also it also mentioned about the social responsibility of the company. And all these topics, it will be difficult to address them in a very short time. So I truly advise you that when you whenever you're gonna establish a company or start a business in Saudi Arabia, to also look at the new company law, to look what are the rights obligation offered for you, either as a shareholder or even for you being a manager of a company. And thank you so much. I will leave you now for the next slide with my colleague Michael, who will be taking you through the regional headquarters and the secondary registration of the company. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just hoping I'm visible. If I could just see anybody in the crowd nod to see that I'm visible, that would be wonderful.
Wait a second, Michael.
1 second, yes.
Give me a second, please.
Speakers.
Now we can start.
Perfect. Good evening, everybody. I mean, I must say I'm quite thankful that I'm able to join you remotely, even from this great distance. As you've heard, my colleagues have had some very interesting things to say and tell us. What I would like to do is I would like to start us off on this regional headquarters program. Now, this has really been a buzzword, particularly amongst our clients. Even we've noticed a certain uptick, and the big reason why is, and what I believe was, because of the government's announcement that, you know, these giga projects and mega projects that my colleague Shradad mentioned earlier, you know, that it would be a requirement for you to now have an RHQ in order to tender or bid for these tenders for these projects. Now, what I would like to mention is that the first port of call is understanding the who, the what, and the why. So why did they introduce the RHQ program? Now, although a lot of people might think that it was simply to limit the participation in government tenders, that is frankly not the case. One of the biggest reasons is that it requires strategic and management decisions from multinational companies to be headquartered or located within Saudi Arabia, which not only encourages employment of what might be functionary workers, but also highly skilled, highly qualified Saudi nationals to get a skills transfer, fair skills transfer from some of the world's leading brains and experts in business and in their field, in their operational fields. So the understanding the why is far more important than understanding the consequences thereof. So if we have to work on to the next step, and this is often what we find with our clients, is that we have to then start discussing the eligibility of these clients. So when we look at, okay, a client approaches us, they need to start an RHQ, they would like to bid on a particular tender or tenders in particular for a particular project. We would then have to start by investigating and asking them first, are you a multinational company? Do you operate in more than one Middle East and North African region? And when we say operate, it would mean that you have a commercial register. You've got a physically registered business within 2 or more of those regions. So for instance, and a good example of this would be potentially you make wood products in Morocco and assemble them in Dubai. This would be a perfect example of more than one jurisdiction. You would then need to have a parent company on top of that. So you would need actually, and the reality of it would be that there would be 3 required CRs from different regions. Now, and notwithstanding any Saudi CRs, so even if you already had a business or an entity operating within the kingdom, that would not be counted towards your CRs. So you would need to operate in 2 or more regions, submit a CR for your parent entity, as well as have a separate company spun up for it. Now, it's not to say that it's all just stick with the Saudi government. There are actual benefits. Now, some of these benefits are quite well known, and I'll start with some of the more well-known ones. So access to government tenders. Naturally, to access government tenders, it's been well publicized that you would need to have an RHQ. But the next, and some of the more interesting ones actually relate to immigration. So one of the biggest things that we notice anyway is that it allows for you to issue business visit visas or business working visas for your spouse, your dependents, which is unavailable to any other business. And this would mean that even though your partner or spouse came to the kingdom with you, they would be permitted to perform works within the kingdom. Changing the dynamic completely from the ordinary case, the ordinary cases. There would also be a release or an exemption on a cap of the amount of business visit visas that one would be able to issue. So for instance, if you had to scale up your operations and you've been awarded a larger project and you now needed to quickly scale up your operations, not only would you have access to, for instance, white-collar workers, but you'd also be able to in-house a lot of expatriate talents to build capacity for you to perform that project. So with that cap removed, it really would open up a lot of doors. Another very interesting point that I'd like to mention, and Maha had touched on this earlier, is the MISA license, the professional type of MISA license. So when you have an RHQ program, there is a release on or there's an exemption on the requirement for you to be certified and registered to practice those professional activities within the kingdom. So for instance, this allows much larger engineering companies, accounting firms, law firms to operate within the region without having to prove that they have being qualified and are registered to practice within that region, which saves a significant amount of cost and hassle when it comes to actually opening up the business. A big reason for this is it cuts down your legalization and attestation times at the issuing countries of all these universities, where we've had some experiences where it can take up to 6 months to 12 months for a simple degree to be legalized and attested. Which naturally creates massive difficulties with business planning. Another very pertinent thing to remember is that it would also allow beneficiaries or the beneficiary benefits extended up to the age of 25, meaning that even adult dependents would still be liable to be beneficiaries under medical aid schemes for that company. So that is some of the more interesting ones and less well-known one. Another one that I think is very much underplayed on, another benefit that I think is very much underutilized, underplayed upon, is that you would be allowed to consult with MISA. So MISA would offer consultation services. Now, the application for the RHQ process is quite similar to what we would do for an ordinary company and corporation. we would follow the exact steps that my colleague Maha had taken us through. The only difference is our ISIC activity we would list would be RHQ. So we would submit the supplementary CRs, meaning those two separate CRs, not of the parent company or a Saudi entity. We would then also submit the name to MISA directly for reservation, and we would pay our licensing fees. And upon approval, the license would then be issued, the RHQ license would be issued. So it's quite a straightforward, easy process. However, like with all good things, there are catches to this, and there are certain compliance catches that you would need to be made aware of. Now, within the first 6 months of being issued your RHQ license, you would need to start undertaking RHQ activities. Now, these activities would be your strategic and decision, like management decisions that would be taken for the region. So for the Middle East and North African region, those decisions would need to start being, and those decision makers would need to start being located and formally employed within that RHQ and underneath that RHQ license. The next pertinent point would be that within the first 12 months, you would have to undertake at least 3 of the optional RHQ activities. These can be seen as your non-core function, your non-core business function activities. These activities, for instance, would be your accounting, bookkeeping, sales, marketing, business development. So anything that isn't essential to your core business operations but supports the business, those activities would have to start within a 12-month period. Another important thing to note is that within 12 months, you would have to have a staff count of 15 employees. What most people don't realize is that of those 15 employees, 3 would need to be at an executive level. So that would need to be your regional CEO, your regional C-level suite of executives or director level executives at the very least, regional director level executives at the very least. So those positions would need to be filled. Those appointed employees, those appointed executives would need to be suitably qualified to be executives. So it wouldn't necessarily be required that they be a professional attorney or professional lawyer to undertake those activities, merely that they are experienced enough in management and leadership that they would be suitably placed within there. So it's really to prevent nominee placements of directors and leader positions in order to qualify for the RHQ. It's also important to remember that once you've registered your RHQ, you still would not be entitled to invoice and out of that company. There are restrictions on earning an income through that company. So there's a restriction on commercial activity, meaning that your RHQ would not be permitted to be invoicing clients directly for sales or for projects completed or professional services. There would have to be a separate subsidiary spun up, which would then have to undertake those activities underneath that RHQ. Where there are a lot of benefits, but the RHQ used correctly does allow for savvy businessmen and entrepreneurs to really take advantage of the region and the massive growth by taking advantage of these concessions that are made. We're now going to move on to some of my favorite parts of Saudi law, and this would be compliance. And a big reason why I do enjoy this is because there's a lot of detail to this. So how I try and build this out to my clients is I explain that that with the digitization movement, all of these portals are interlinked. Now, when I talk about these portals, you would have heard Maha briefly go over them. These would be the MHRSD portals, so the Ministry of Human Development, Human Resources and Social Development, and your Ministry of Labor file. So in order to have that file open, you would have to onboard your first Saudi national employee. You would then register with the MHRSD. With that, you would get given a registration, a reference number. With that reference number, you would then activate your GoSee portal. Now, your GoSee portal is incredibly important for managing all social security for all of your employees, meaning that every single employee that you have onboarded would be registered with GoSee and under your company's GoSee file and entitled to certain social security payments to be made on their behalf. The next most important question we get asked by our clients is naturally to do with tax, Zatka. So with Zatka, you would, upon completion of your incorporation, so at that point in the phase where my colleague Maha had spoken about you being capable of contracting, so on the issuance of your CR, you would then, and your MISA, your foreign investment license from MISA, you would then receive a reference number from Zatka. So with that reference number, you would then be able to register your company on the portal, receive your first approval, and then receive your first tax clearance certificate. However, there is a caveat to this. It must be noted that you would need an auditor to assist you with signing off certain documents in order for you to proceed with your VAT registration, which most clients aren't aware of. Now, this auditor would have to be licensed to practice within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, be it a global audit firm with a local partner or a smaller, more bespoke audit firm who've had all their practice within the region. After that, the next most pertinent questions we find has to do with the physical presence in Saudi, our office space. Michael, where do we get our office space? What are the requirements that we have? So this is known as your vassal. Now, finding suitable premises can be incredibly challenging depending on where the business will be located and how important proximity is. For instance, our clients in Riyadh will often have quite a difficult time in securing suitable premises that suit their needs. But it must be remembered that a lot of these requirements are set on the basis of your ISEC activity. So once you've found a suitable premises with a suitable landlord, whether it be built for purpose or whether it be leased from an owner, your GM's credentials would then be used to register that vassal profile. The PO box and physical address of your business would then be linked. So after that lease is concluded, it will then be uploaded to Vassal. Your GM's details will be linked with it, and your company's profile will then be linked with those two details. We then move on to some of the more tricky and oftentimes time-consuming part of this process, and that's your municipality and civil defense license. Now, these requirements are really set by each municipality, whether it be in Mecca, Jeddah, Riyadh. It's set by each individual municipality, and what determines those is not only the municipality, but your ISEC activities, so what activities you will be undertaking. So for instance, anybody doing an industrial license type naturally couldn't have a 5 square meter, 10 square meter office space in a city center. It would not make sense. So once we've received those requirements, there may be a requirement to retrofit whichever office space, whichever premises has been secured, in order to make it compliant with the municipality's requests. So that could be health and safety requests, fitment of signage, CCTV cameras, number of bathrooms. It's a very prescriptive process. The municipality will then conduct an inspection, whether it be an inspection in loco, so in-person inspection, or whether we will upload photos as evidence to proof of compliance. The municipality will then have that evidence submitted to them. Upon that, they will then issue out your certificate of compliance, which will often take, again, it's probably one of the most difficult parts. We now move on to some of the more interesting portals, and these are the ones that really relate to your labor and immigration. So these are critical and crucial for maintaining and managing your employees. So whilst GoSee might manage your social security payments, you've now moved on to your Mudat, which is your next link in your labor portal. So with your Mudat portal, all employment contracts would be uploaded to that. So within the kingdom, for those uninitiated, there's a certain set precedent for that the government expects, an employment contract. You will then have that employee sign that employment contract. That'll be authenticated and uploaded to Mudat. Mudat is then linked also to your GoSee account, which is important to remember because Mudat is used to manage your WPS. So every month, once you've once you paid your subscription to the portal, every month, once you pay out of your corporate accounts, a certificate is generated for each employee, which would then need to be uploaded to Mudat and GoSee to prove that these deductions have actually been taken off. Our next sets of portals deal with immigration, and this is immigration both for locals and for foreign nationals. Your Muqayyim portal is used really to manage your dependents, and passport control. So if you're bringing in an expat who's moving with a wife and 2 kids, this portal will be the one that would then manage those dependent visas, as well as your domestic staff, for instance, your chefs, your maids. This would be the portal that really would be used to manage those kinds of affairs. Then another portal, so your second portal that manages immigration is Kiva. Now your Kiva portal is used to issue out your letters of invitation, used to issue out your business visa, your business visa, and your Iqama. So all of that is linked to your Kiva portal. Now your Kiva portal is linked to MHRSD accounts. So this is why I often try to tell my clients that every single portal has an interconnected relation and dependent relationship. You know, one cannot simply be semi-compliant. Unfortunately, you either are compliant or you are not. Now, just to take you through some of the ongoing compliance needs that we deal with, some of these are very normal. So your tax compliance is, as it would be in many other jurisdictions, there's an annual assessment that would take place. You would then pay your tax burden and would receive a tax clearance certificate. That happens on an annual basis, quite common in other jurisdictions. Some of the other ones which are a little bit trickier to deal with, for instance, is the way the GoSee and WPS compliance would work, where it's ongoing and it's monthly, and it requires multiple steps in order to process them correctly. However, these are not remotely the most complicated ones. You've got the Municipality and Rural Affairs certificate. Now, this is the certificate that we discussed a couple of slides ago with the municipality. These certificates have to be renewed before the expiry date. And to miss these would be quite crucial. It would definitely attract some very difficult consequences. Now, it is important to note that with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, once you've been non-compliant once you've found a non-compliance once, you would have to then not only potentially have to pay a fine, but we would also then have to wait a 3-month period of continual compliance before access would be granted back to your immigration portals, your Kiva portals, which naturally, if not properly maintained and looked after, and there's not a proactive steps taken to manage them, can cause drastic and dire consequences if somebody's Iqama was going to expire and you were locked out of your immigration portal, for instance, your Kiva portal. So you'd be unable to renew it. You'd be unable to issue out more visas, more letters of invitation. It would essentially bring your business grinding to a halt for 3 months until you are compliant. So all of that being said, at Proven, we do pride ourselves in taking a far more proactive step to this. So once we've taken you through the incorporation journey, that's not where we let you go into the wild, to go face these complicated steps alone. That's really where I believe we step into our own, and not only offering expert advice and the most up-to-date information, but also ensuring that our clients are at all times kept up to date on the latest developments of the law, with the latest obligations that they would face, as well as us offering to take their hands, away from the government relations, the non-core business making processes. We deal with all the government departments. We understand exactly how the social security works. We understand the wage protection system. And because of that kind of expertise, we're able to guide our clients in not only ensuring that they can do all of these submissions every month, but also accurately guide them in how to better plan for their staffing needs, for their employment needs, their expat needs, and helping them proactively manage their growth within the region, ensuring that along every step of the way they maintain absolute compliance and give them the best chance at succeeding in Saudi Arabia as we can. I would now like to thank everybody for their time, and I'm going to be handing over to my good friend and learned colleague, Sumer, who will be taking us through the Saudiization in depth. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Michael. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, it's working now. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing such an insightful information with the audience. Really appreciate that. Okay, so today I'm here to, first of all, good evening, everyone, and I hope you guys are enjoying your evening. So today I'm here to discuss about the most important topic in Saudi, which is the Netakat program. I know, like most of the companies in Saudi, they would love to know about this program. This is really important factor to start up your entity in Saudi. So I would like to give you an overview about the Netakat program. So Netakat, it's not working. Just give me a second, sorry. So the Netakat program was introduced by the Saudi Arabian government to promote the localization of the workforce in the country. So Netakat was basically launched back in 2011. Netakat in Arabic means ranges. And we also call it Saudiization or a Netakat program. The main objective of this Netakat program is to encourage the Saudi hiring in the private sector and to reduce the dependency on the expatriate workers. Okay. The most important incentives or this Saudi program basically offers incentive to the companies who meet the localization target set by the government. So as I mentioned, the Netakat program was introduced back in 2011. Since the implementation in 11, Netakat has been gone through different updates and the changes, recently most of the major updates was done back in December 2021, where the government, they have come up with a new updated Netakat program, which we call it Advanced Netakat. And Advanced Netakat, basically it involves a permanent Saudiization plan for the companies where which includes 3 years of plan starting effective from December 21st, 2021. And in this plan, basically, they have provided the Saudi companies in Saudi to make sure they can hire as much as Saudi, so they can at least operate in Saudi. So the second thing, the Netakat, advanced Netakat applies to the companies who have 6 or more than 6 employees in the company. Same goes for, as my colleague Maha, she explained that most of the companies in Saudi, they have different company activities. So it used to be back in 2011, it used to be 85 company activities, which has been now condensed to the 32 company activities as soon they launched the Advanced Intakat program. Also, the government, they want to ensure the companies, they should meet the localization target set by the government, so they should not impose the penalties on the companies who have not met the criteria. The most important factor, or I would say the criteria the government has set over here, is the contribution of the Saudization. So how the companies, they should know is the Saudi employer, Saudi resource they have recently hired, is contributing towards your Saudization or no. So they have certain criteria, such as the minimum wage. The minimum wage for a Saudi national should be 4,000 Riyal. So in case, if the employee, if he is receiving, Saudi employee, if he is receiving 3,000 or less than 4,000 Riyal, or if he's registered as a part-time worker, he will be contributed as a half Saudi, not a full Saudi. Same goes for the handicapped worker. So if you hire a handicapped Saudi national, he will be contributing toward the Saudization as a 4 Saudis. Same goes for the GCC national. A GCC national also contributes toward your Saudization as one proper Saudi. And last but not least, the son and the daughter of a Saudi citizen will also contribute towards your Saudization as a fully Saudi. So in case, if you hire a son of a Saudi citizen or a daughter of a Saudi citizen, he or she will be contributing toward your Saudization. So under Advanced Netakat, basically it has been classified into 5 different categories, such as Platinum category, High Green, Mid Green, Low Green, and Red category. The main objective of this classification is to ensure that we are maintaining the percentage of the Saudization, so we can fall into one of these categories defined by the government. And each range has its privileges and the limitations. So I'll be starting the privileges of each range, such as for the Platinum range companies, they would be eligible or have the benefits to receive the application for the balance of the visa quota, so you can hire a non-Saudi national from outside Saudi, or you can locally transfer someone from locally inside Saudi Arabia as well. The second benefit is like you can, if your company is in a Platinum range, you can also change the profession of your employees, foreign employees, that are not restricted to the Saudi national, because some of the job titles has been restricted only for the Saudi national as well. So I will discuss that later on as well. Also, the Platinum range companies can also renew the work permit and the Iqamas for their employees within 6 months of validity. So if the Iqama of an employee is expiring, the company can still renew their Iqamas and work permit within 6 months. They can easily transfer any foreign national from any Netakat band. So for example, a person, his company is in the red category, and if you want to hire that person or that employee into your company, by having your company in the Platinum range, you can easily transfer that person to your company. And the most important thing over here, the Saudization contribution, as I mentioned, as soon you hire a Saudi national, he will be directly contributing towards your Saudization. You don't have to wait. It's an instant calculation. Before, what was happening, as soon as you hire a Saudi person, you have to wait for 26 weeks, which is 6 months. But by having this Advanced Netakat, what the regulation has been changed is like, as soon as you hire a Saudi person, it will immediate benefit towards your Saudization. Same goes for the High Green, Mid Green, and the Low Green ranges. So they all receive the same benefits as of the Platinum band categories company, whereas the only difference here is for the Low Green range company. Like as soon as your company drops to the Low Green, you won't be able to hire any foreign national. You won't be able to have the eligibility quota for the foreign national. So you need to ensure you must hire a Saudi national in order to boost your Saudization. So you will be coming from low green to the high green or the mid green in order to avail all these benefits. Okay, coming to the red-green category. So red is the category where you won't be able to get any benefits from the government, such as you won't be able to get the visa balance quota, you won't be able to renew the commerce, you won't be able to renew the work permit, you won't be able to open the new branches. So I would say like you won't be able, or your company won't be able to do anything. But the main cause over here is, as I mentioned, in the platinum and the high green band, it will benefit you as soon as you hire a Saudi national within 1 week. But once your company drops to the red band category, you have to wait for 26 weeks in order for that Saudi person to contribute towards your Saudization, which means if you hire one Saudi national, it takes you 26 weeks of an average to count him in the Saudization. So you have to hire at least maybe 5 or 6 Saudi, so that can accommodate to your Saudization band. Last but not least, the Saudization categories, Saudization job roles. As I mentioned earlier in my previous slide, some of the certain job roles has been allocated for the Saudi national also. So for example, as I mentioned, finance 30%, marketing 30%. So as soon a company hires above 4 employees or 5th employee, they need to ensure they are compliant with the Saudi percentage allocated by the government. So you need to ensure as soon as you have the 5th non-Saudi national, you have to hire 30% finance job role, Saudi person on that job role. Same goes for the marketing, same goes for the engineer. The problem over here is, if you are not compliant with the Saudi's job role, you won't be able to renew the iqamas or the work permit for your non-Saudi or foreign employees. The system will not allow you to renew the iqamas and will ask you to be compliant with this percentage. So these are some of the Saudi's job roles where you need to ensure, your company need to ensure they should be compliant with this percentage so you can renew their iqamas. And in case if you are not compliant, we have recently seen where the government, they are imposing penalties on the companies from 15,000 to 30,000 Riyal just to be compliant so you can hire more Saudis on these specific job roles. As we are running out of time, sorry for, I do understand like it's really a vast topic to discuss, but as we're running out of time, I would like to call upon my colleague Usman Qureshi so he can take it forward. Thank you guys.
Well, some fascinating information. Thank you everyone for having us, and thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate you coming and showing us the patience, and I know it's a lot of overwhelming information. Trust me, we will share the slides. You get the benefit of coming here for sure. I will be discussing today more insights, a little bit more insights about immigration and how does mobility work. Well, the prime objective of every company when they are coming to Saudi is how quickly they can be enabled, they can hire resources, how quickly we can start working on their projects or run these smoother operations. To start that, how does it work? Well, you need people to work. You need resources to engage. So this is why visas and quotas are very, very important. I generally give a very prime example of comparison. First of all, in Dubai, you get visa quotas based on the office space. So bigger the office space, you get more quotas. Compared to in Saudi Arabia, you hire more Saudi nationals, you get more quota. This is as simple as that. So it's not very complicated to understand. Second thing is, we have to understand the economics. Saudi market. So compared to UAE wanted capital. They want people to invest. They want people to keep money in their bank accounts. Well, great thing, Saudi is not poor. So we don't need capital investment. What we need is to create jobs. So all the foreign companies that are allowed to set up their entity in Saudi Arabia, well, we want them to create jobs for locals. We want them to grow. We want them. So as long as Saudi, market is growing, it's creating more opportunities. There's more power to local people, and this is exactly one of the main mission. So by ease of doing business, by allowing companies to invest in Saudi Arabia, this is exactly the prime mission. So, come with these expectations. Expect that to enhance. Expect that to get a little bit more streamlined over time, because You know, there's a fair study that shows that companies that are struggling to meet the Saudization goals obviously fail to grow, fail to perform. So you do need local support. With that, I'm going to share 4 major categories of Saudi visas that one can obtain. So to get the quotas, first one is, as soon as you set up the company and you have the first Saudi national registered to activate the labor file, you get few visa quotas available. More Saudis you have, more you get. So the first one is block visas. That's permanent, that is residency visa that allows one to work compliantly and hold a local contract. Before allocating the visa, what do we do as a practice? We assess company's profile. So how well is their nitikat? Is your expectation realistic? So one cannot say, oh, well, we can hire 150 people tomorrow and onboard them in 1 month. It doesn't sound realistic. So you set the expectations right. Second thing what we do is, we check the quota eligibility. You always do one thing, read candidate's profile. Do they fit into this position? Do they have relevant academic qualification that will allow them to get the Saudi visas? Well, there's a job list, professions list provided by Saudi Labor Ministry. We always advise our clients to compare the academic qualifications next to the job titles to make sure there are no hiccups. Everything goes very smooth. So you pre-qualify candidates before bringing them here. And next thing is, you need to make sure the consular process goes smooth. So job title allocation, very important. First, quota eligibility, job title allocation, and then setting the profile right. This will sort the purpose out. And then you can realistically expect the onboarding date. Next one is temporary work visa. This has been introduced about 2 years ago. There was not much clearance, but now it's been given. All the consulates have been updated, saying that now you can process the temporary work visa. This is to make sure that the company is able to bring resources on project basis, and they're allowed to work compliantly by having a summarized local contract and making sure that it does not impact your Saudization. So you can issue the block of temporary visas as long as you are in medium green, high green, or platinum category. If you are in red zone, apparently you don't get that benefit. So this is very important for companies to understand. If they want to bring resources on temporary basis, then they must remain compliant with Neticat. Another one is the most common used visa, business visit visa. I am so pleased to share that we have got entire team from Dubai on business visit visa. So how was your experience? I'll quickly share their experience. It was very streamlined. So visa got approved through MOFI. It does not impact your Saudization. It does not get issued from Ministry of Labor. It's from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You get the visa approved within few hours. The consular process is streamlined. They had their passports in and out in 3 working days. So, and there's no additional requirements to perform medical, no need for degree legalization, as long as the country that you're applying for, your status is legal. You are a resident or you are a national of that country. That is all you need. Process is pretty streamlined. You get 12 months multiple entries visa with 90 days durational stay that can be extended. So pretty streamlined. And last one is e-visas. Well, what's all that about? Well, you get e-visas in about 2 hours. You get it WhatsApp. Once you apply online, there's no consular process and you get onboarded. What can you do in that? That's the biggest question. Well, you can't work, for sure. You can perform tourist activities. You can come and I'll take you to the Grey Gate. That probably would work. Or Riyadh season, everyone tells me that. I've never been there. So if someone volunteers, I'll join them for sure. And last thing is, what you need to do is make sure you can attend the meetings, but you cannot perform consulting work. So there's a very fine line. You can perform business meetings. You can meet your clients. So this streamlines the process. That expedites. If you need to come and join and meet a company, you can do that. But what you can't do is perform consulting work. This is why business visit visa is the most suitable option. If you need to perform technical work, get temporary work visa. And if you need to perform long-term work, that is consulting, advisory, whatsoever, get it in Karma. Be prepared. This is very, very important. Can you move the slide? Sorry. Okay, so what are the developments? How quickly can you onboard your resources? Just going to quickly tell you that there's been latest development. Saudi has been the 122nd country to join the Hague Convention. That means that there's no more requirement of legalizing the degree document going through Saudi Embassy, Saudi Cultural Office, as long as your degree is apostolized, locally legalized. You do not need additional legalizations to get the Iqama visa stamped. So that reduces the timeline somewhere from 1 month to 3 months. So let's suppose in US it used to take about 30 days, where in India it used to take over 90 days because every state had its own laws of legalization and the entire process was a mess. So even though companies were able to get the quota, companies were able to get the candidate, but sometimes they would lose candidate because candidate or potential employee could not wait for 90 days and above to join a company in Saudi Arabia. They would lose the interest, they would lose faith in the whole immigration system. You know, one has to earn, so one can't stay jobless for such a long time. So this is one thing that has been a key development, although there's still a gap. So if the person needs to bring his family to Saudi Arabia on a permanent residency visa, the Istiqdam office, that's one of the branch of Minister of Interior, is requesting for legalized degree. So that can only be found based on experience. So this is why you talk to us and we tell you the real story. So in the meantime, you apply for Iqama and you convert all the conversion and secure the Iqama, complete the medical. I think the degree legalization process can start on the back end and one can get it done if they wish to bring their families in Saudi Arabia. But to bring your family and dependents on a visit visa, you do not need a legalized form of degree certificates. Now, what this has done in a good way, faster turnaround time. You can bring your resources on board much faster and much quicker. What is the key to managing Saudization? Okay? Well, first of all, you need to make sure that you're able to project Saudization. We can help you with the appropriate reports, projections, what you need to manage this year, next year, and then next year, so on. So you know how many resources you can hire based on the required Saudization and how many resources you need to add in specific technical categories such as engineers or technician or other professions that are highly Saudized. So we can help you. Second thing, you need to amend your recruitment strategy. Prioritize localization. Prioritize localization. It is, I'll say, the social responsibility of businesses. You earned here, try to empower locals. You must do that. Third thing is that you need to make sure you pre-qualify new hires. A lot of times we've seen horror stories. Hiring a candidate but not able to bring them on board because they do not have degree certificates. Well, they assumed, oh, he was an engineer with 20 years of experience. Sorry, the country law does not permit you to get the Saudi visa. So pre-qualify them and set realistic timelines. You cannot lie to your candidates. You cannot give them false promises. You cannot tell them that you'll be onboarded in a month's time. They have to make a lot of changes into their life when they're relocating. So keep the key interests on, make sure you're relevant, and make sure you set the expectations right. And the last thing, what are the interim solutions? What if I've struggled enough? I can't find the candidate. I'm struggling with Saudization. Well, for that, there are alternate solutions. You must hire through a third party. Companies like who provide PEO services, employer of record services, or outsourcing services, and you subcontract your foreign national resources to make sure that it does not impact your Saudization. That's the last solution you should look for. And with that, last further development is what has changed in compliance, because my friend Michael was very much speaking about compliance, mother, GOSI, WPS. What do you need to manage? Quickly, well, first now, the biggest change is that if your company falls between 1 and 29 employees, your WPS monthly compliance should reach 90%. And if you are 30 employees and above, 95%. That's quite an optimistic goal to set, because why? You need to make sure that you pay your employees as per the employed contracted salaries. And this is one step ahead to excellence. And I second that all the time, because employers were breaching that, and employers who were breaching the WPS policies, they no longer can retain labor services. They can no longer hire people because their labor file gets blocked. Next thing is labor contract authentication. It's not so complicated process, but it's to bring transparency between employee and employer. If you're placing a contract, then, and if you have additional clauses, Labor Ministry wants to make sure that those clauses are in line with labor policies and there's no contradiction. So you might add a clause into a contract that is not in line with Saudi labor law. So that does get reviewed, and you make sure all the contracts are streamlined. So this exercise needs to happen with each and every employee of your company, that your labor contracts are authenticated through a Kiva platform. And if you ever need help for that, give us a call and we'll help you for sure. And with that, I think we'll move to the panelists, and if you have any questions, please do ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Usman. Well, thank you everyone and our amazing speakers for bringing us to a very informative and interesting session today and sharing your valuable insights with us. And thank you to our wonderful audience for investing your time with us. This brings us to my favorite and final part of the event, where we would like to call upon our panel of experts to come on board and talk about the various industry trends. I'm pleased to invite Mr. Omar Salim, CEO of Proven Arabia, alongside Mr. Usman Qureshi, Director of Customer Success, and Ms. Anita Chalke, Director of Entity Management, to join us, please. Great. So I'll actually kick off the conversation by asking a few questions before we open up the floor for the audience. So my question here starts with Anita. So Anita, based on the recent discussions that we've had with our clients, what we've observed is, in fact, I'm sure the audience would be curious to know as well, that once we have identified a company qualifying for a regional headquarter in Saudi, what is the next milestone to accomplish as part of the next steps?
Well, 1, 2, 3, it's working. Thank you so much for that question, and well, good evening everyone, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today. About regional headquarter, I think Michael, my colleague, has given a detailed explanation of regional headquarter. To answer to that question, why and when they should start incorporating regional headquarter is something you need to understand. Recently, there was an announcement by MISA authority that from 2024, if you are going to bid for the government project or you are a subcontracting company, it is important to make sure you have a regional headquarter. So since from 2024, the MISA authority is going to list the companies who are involved into regional headquarter, and if your license is not in place, it's possible that it will impact your operational procedure. So I think this reason is more than enough to really start thinking about your regional headquarter licensing procedure now. And apart from that, there are various incentives that is associated with the regional headquarters. So it is, again, I cannot emphasize that, to start really putting things together now. I just would like to add one more point, that one of the important activity of a regional headquarter is to maintain the management functions and strategic directions, and such decisions are not taken overnight. So I think I've given enough reason, again, to make sure that you start putting things together strategically as well before it becomes mandatory in the future. So that's what I would like to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anita. That was indeed insightful. My next question actually that comes to mind is for Usman. So this is actually one of the most commonly asked questions, and let's suppose we have a company that does not have a local presence yet in Saudi Arabia, and they are interested to mobilize their workforce. What is the safest route and the most appropriate solution to take?
Thank you so much for the right question, I think. So if a company wants to mobilize resources, first thing they need to do is understand how many resources they want to bring, for how long. If the project is short-term, sorry, am I audible? Okay, great.
Yes.
So if the project is short-term basis, then there is option of business visit visas or using a third party to get sponsored, at least be on the ground, test the waters, and if things are established and the business has a long-term prospect of securing and doing business, then apparently go through the entity incorporation process. But, I mean, if you already have a provider who can help you to bring your resources on board and on ground, apparently once your own entity is established, the transfer of employee process is pretty streamlined. And it takes about a week to perform the transfer sponsorships and whatsoever. Another option is if they do not have the entity, apparently there is, so MISA is all there to help them, to guide them to how to set up the entities, and with that, with the ease of doing business, with no capital requirement, and also enabling companies to set up their headquarters with no NITICAT for 10 years, these are some eye-catching, I think, requirements that have been dropped and made it easier for companies to set up the local organization. I think this is the right time. Anything later than that, I think once the regulations become mandatory, apparently they've been influxed, you might face delays and challenges in setting up the local entity, and also with the immigration system. So apparently I'd say sooner is better at the moment. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you, Usman. Very well articulated. And with that, my final question would be for Mr. Omar. Now, as we all know, since there's a lot of buzz around the regional headquarter program, Mr. Omar, how do you see it being beneficial to foreign investors as well as for the economy in Saudi Arabia?
Fair enough, thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here with us today, first of all. The RHQ program is pretty interesting, right? So when it was first announced, there was a lot of noise around it, and the narrative has switched quite a bit over the last 2 years. I think the immediate short-term benefits will be in the goods and services area, where a lot of existing organizations who are doing business in Saudi Arabia mobilize the RHQ in Saudi Arabia and bring in people, resources, etc. So, the normal goods and services will see an uptick. In the long run, I think it'll be a little bit more transformative, right? There's a lot of FDI which will come in terms of technology, skill set, and capital. This will be transformative for the local economy on multiple levels. And then supply chains, I think that's where I think you'll see a lot of changes localized, and that has a lot of downstream. One of the things that I highlight in terms of RHQ is it.
Yeah. Do you want to swap the mic? Sorry.
No worries. Is that we're sort of at a cusp of a lot of changes that are happening fundamentally to the economy globally, right? So you're seeing IoT, you're seeing Web 3.0, AI, machine learning, and a lot of transformative technology paired with capital. And I think the timeline that we're looking at for the RHQ program is really in sync by design or by chance with this transformation that's happening overall. And by the time the RHQs solidify on ground, I think a lot of the downstream changes that are going to be happening due to these technology shifts, capital shift, will already be in place. And the resulting use cases, which we don't see right now, really. I mean, it's the same thing as cell phones. In 1995, if someone said the cell phone would be transformative, we didn't really know the actual use cases. And all these technologies that are coming in play, the RHQs for major corporations that are doing business will be solidified. So the synthesis of these two changes is really critical, and I think it'll be transformative beyond what we can even see right now. So that's sort of my summary of the situation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Omar. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. We shall now initiate our interactive discussion with the audience, and every idea and question from the audience will be welcomed. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask us the questions. Our team on floor and my very dear colleague, Sahim, will assist in passing the mic around. So yeah, let's get started. Hi. Hello.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me? My name is Ali Abbas. Thank you for putting on this event. It's been really informative, and you can tell it's been informative because I've got 3 questions for each of you.
Wow.
So just starting off with the RHQ program. Michael gave us some good details about the program, but I just wanted to figure out, are there any capital requirements for the RHQ? 1. 2, is it necessary for the RHQ to then wholly own the subsidiary company that's doing the commercial activities, or can they just be separate entities? And connecting to that, does the RHQ then also have to wholly own the subsidiaries in the MENA region as well? So would it be essentially a holdco? I'll let you guys.
Maha.
Thank you for your question. Currently, we don't have that much insight if you need to do a restructuring for your global or at least MENA region structure to get it under the ownership of the Saudi regional headquarters. However, this might be taken in consideration, but we would encourage to wait a little bit until the MISA license has the infrastructure for the implementation. Now, what we know that you need to make it a hub for the support and for the management center, that all your business structures, the strategy planning, your financial strategy that will be generated through the regional headquarters. But for now, there is no requirement to get the ownership of your structure under the regional headquarters. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. There are a few questions that I can answer as well. So your first question was that, is there any capital requirement? No. Because you will not be performing the commercial activities, you'll be governing the commercial activities. But to answer another question is, do they have to govern the rest of the MENA entities? Yes. This is exactly the whole purpose of setting up the headquarters in Saudi and shifting that all the strategic decisions will happen from the headquarters in Riyadh. So I hope this answers your questions. Apparently, why there's no capital requirement? Because you will not be performing any commercial activities. Neither are you expected to, have any profit. So this all automatically eliminates the requirement. Well, if you have any questions, do let me know. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And sorry to hog this. It's just very excited to be in front of this panel. I think Maha might be able to answer this question as well regarding premium residency. Have you had any experience with advising clients on obtaining premium residency, and what are the general timelines with that? And finally, do you need MISA licensing if you're a premium resident, a foreign national with a premium residency?
To answer the first part, yes, we already have part of our clients that they wanted to incorporate the entity under their own individual ownership. So we already did the due diligence, and we already had the requirement and all the procedures for applying to the premium residency. Is it taking much time? No, it's an application and it will be subject to the revision of the portal. However, what will take time is preparing the requirement, because if you are resident in Saudi Arabia, you will be submitting some records from your GUSI portal, from your portal, from the Interior Affairs and so on. If you are outside, you would submit financial statements, legalized and attested and so on, to submit your application. The application would be reviewed by a competent authority, and then they will provide you the approval to get the premium residency. After you get the premium residency, if you're applying for a MISA license or you're incorporating a company, yes, you need to get a MISA license based on the ISIC activity, because the type of license would depend on what activity you'll be performing in Saudi Arabia. If you are performing services, it will be a service license activity. If you're doing commercial or trading, it will be the commercial one, and so on. But the requirement is still there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maha, for sharing your insights, and thank you for the wonderful question. Next question, please. Do we have anyone?
Yes, Mohammed Akil here.
Hi, Mohammed.
First of all, I'm really glad to be here today. I believe this presentation is very straightforward. I think you should not give it for free. Okay, this is my suggestion, because it's a clear guidance and a clear path for everyone who want to establish their own company, or as instructed in the slide. So my question really is, I don't know how to put it up, because this regional headquarter requirement came around 5 years ago or 6 years ago, we can say that. So we can say in a phases, the kingdom is coming up with, there is a new development. Mainly the vision to comply with the Vision 2030 to reduce the dependency on oil. So there is a new thing, I believe, soon it will make a noise in the market, I believe, which is called local content. Okay, it's you need to rely on the local content which is being procured, which is being made here locally in Saudi Arabia. So how do you suggest the companies to prepare for that in the coming years? That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Good question, and I thank you for that. We touched based on that, the localization of supply chain. I think it's a global phenomenon overall, right? Especially after COVID, supply chain disruption was there. In Saudi, it was driven by different underliers. There are certain steps you can take. It depends on the industry you're in, depends on how globalized your supply chain is. Aramco already has their own program, SABIC has their own program, right? So in order to bid, and it's getting stringent, more and more stringent as we go down. So it really depends on really assessing which sector you're in, which industry you're in, from the back-end supply side, how diversified you are, and realistically outlining local suppliers for your inputs, right? And mapping that whole in phases, mapping that localization out. So I think it's coming, and it's already in play for most government contracts, especially for Aramco. If anyone deals with them, it's already in play.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Mohammed, for the great question. Can we have our next question, please?
Yes, hello everyone. This is Hassan Amran, the GM of one Saudi entity. We have our headquarters in the UK. Just more of an HR question. I think your colleague, sorry, I missed your name. Thank you so much. Yeah, so if you've mentioned to be on the green side, or what the son of a Saudi or a daughter of Saudi citizen will count as a Saudi. I believe they still need an Iqama transfer, right? Let's say your balance is 0 at the moment, like your visa balances. How does it work to move them under your company, or transfer them into your company?
Okay, so basically for the son, as I mentioned, son or the daughter of a Saudi citizen, you don't need to transfer them to your sponsorship. So there's a special process, it's called GOSI enrollment. So for all these, and it's called in Arabic Wafid Khas. So we need to enroll, we need to ensure, rather than transferring these employees with the transfer sponsorship services, we will enroll them through the GOSI portal by enrolling them in the GOSI itself. So we need to ensure the minimum salary which we are paying to these son or daughter of a Saudi citizen should be 4,000 riyal, and then they will automatically contributing towards your Saudization. So there would be no need for the transfer sponsorship, even though if they are holding an Iqama. Yeah, the process is very straight, simple, and it has to be routed through the GOSI portal itself.
Thank you so much.
You'd like to add here?
I believe Usman would like to elaborate.
Thank you. Just to add one more technicality, that's the right answer, but with that, son or a daughter of a Saudi national has a subscription number in GOSI. That subscription number is a unified number that should be verified before employing anyone who's with this condition. And that subscription of GoSee eventually is required when you're enrolling them in the GoSee and Mudad, as well as authenticating their contract through that too. So that's the key. Okay, thank you.
There is a minimum age limit for those?
Sorry, for what?
For the daughters and sons.
Well, age limit to employ them? I believe, yeah, you can't employ a child, I guess. But I think it's as long as it's 16 and above, under 18, you're still not considered as one Saudi head count, but above 18, yes, they can be employed as long as they're adults, absolutely, yes. Yeah, so minimum requirement to, let's say, take the benefit of nitiqat is 18, just to answer your question. Thank you. Good question, though.
Thank you so much, Usman and Sumer, for your valuable information. Can we have the next question, please?
Yeah, this is Hassan from Raqamiyat, ex-proven.
Hi, Hassan.
So I have two questions. One of them is for the regional headquarter. I know for foreign companies, they have to go through MISA, but what about Gulf countries? Do these companies have to have their regional headquarters in Saudi as well to be able to perform bids and have the same things for Saudi companies, or no, they would be treated still as a Saudi company? So that's my first question.
Yeah. You can ask another one and I'll answer one.
Okay, so the second question is for the attestation and documentation that you mentioned. Could you elaborate more on that aspect? Because as you mentioned, it's a new thing. So could you give us more information about that?
Sure.
Thanks.
These are both good questions. So I presume you mean to say the companies that are owned and the shareholding is 100% Khaliji, basically, correct? So if it's owned by 100% GCC shareholders, you do not fall under MISA regulations. So if you do not fall under MISA regulations, you do not have the requirement of setting up regional headquarters for now. Okay? I don't know what happens tomorrow morning, sorry. But yeah, for now you're not, because firstly, you're not considered as a foreign investor. GM gets issued a unified ID number. Based on that, you can apply for a local CR. You get the local CR and you go through all the registration smoothly. You also are exempt from foreign tax, so in corporate taxes. So you only have to basically submit the zakat and calculate that. So you're also exempt from that. But the only condition is that it's owned by 100% GCC nationals. If there's even 1% of foreign shareholding, you fall under MISA regulations, and all the foreign investment laws kick in. Answer to your second question is the Hague Convention. It's a very recent development, but for now, we've tested few cases, and as long as, so each country has its attestation and legalization authority. Let's suppose in the US, you have to get it apostilled. Okay, after apostillation, I mean, what you do is get it approved by or legalized by the foreign office. That's all. So these two steps only take about a week. So you do not need to perform any other attestations. If you wish not to bring the family, basically, but if you ever plan to bring your family, then be prepared and carry on with that process, get your visa endorsed at the Saudi consulate, and then fly over. That legalization process with Saudi consulate and embassy can happen in the back end. Once it's ready to be received, it can be delivered directly through courier services in Saudi Arabia. And let's suppose, prior to the conditions that were applied, that before you submit the degree or a diploma to Saudi consulate, you must obtain those legal attestations. That's exactly what's required. So Saudi cultural and Saudi embassy legalizations are no more required for now to at least get your visa stamped. Thank you.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Usman. Can we take a couple of final questions before?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ali Ibrahim from Vialto Partners. You mentioned on companies that do not have presence in Saudi, what are the options to employ people on the ground? One of the options you mentioned was the business visit visa,
Yes.
which clearly states not allowed to work. So what are the permitted activities on the business visit visas, and what are the not permitted activities? So where's the red line falls?
That's an incredible question. I'll let Osman answer that.
Thank you, great question. So as I mentioned, if you need to employ people legally, you need to have the local entity, but you have an alternate solution of using a local partner who can help you to employ whilst you set up your entity. Business visit visa is a temporary solution to bring people on board for consultation only. There shouldn't be any technical hands-on activity. That is not permissible. It allows you to meet your clients, consult with them, and give them services on short-term basis. But the condition to that is you must not be paid in Saudi Arabia. You must be paid in your home country. You cannot have or retain a local employment contract. So there's a very thin and fine line. You cannot also perform training. So there's a list of activities that are permitted and not permitted. We'll be happy to share that information because it's a long list. But in general, you cannot perform engineering activities or accounting activities. It's called skilled services. So if you ever perform skilled services, apparently you do need to hold either temporary work visa or apply for an Iqama. Yeah, so training is also considered to be skilled. So if you do not have an entity, then your client can sponsor you as long as you're based at their site and working in their premises. I think that's the easiest option for now. In the meantime, you work out your solutions. You probably find a local partner to sponsor your Iqama who can help you to be on the ground, and in the meantime, you set up your company, or if you can wait and continue performing the activities through business visit visas, but within the limit, and do not breach your visa conditions ever. So that's also very important because a lot of times we get questions, what if I overstay for a day? Sorry, but then you won't be able to, you wouldn't be allowed back because before they make the exit, the authorities make sure they take your fingerprints until you plan to chop your hands. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Great question.
Thank you so much, everyone. So before I close this event, I'd like to sincerely acknowledge the efforts of those who came forward and contributed to the success of this event. A special mention to our brilliant marketing team that has been doing the job unfailingly, and special thanks to Saheem for navigating the Q&A session with the audience. Thank you so much, everyone, for being such a wonderful and patient audience. It's an absolute delight to be standing here and addressing you all. In some time, dinner will be served, and you may help yourself with that. Don't forget to grab the goodie bag that we have prepared on your way out. And thanks once again for having us, and thank you so much.